goody, what's goody? I'm your host, J-Smoove, and welcome to The Life Unexamined is Not Worth Living. Now, before I get started, you all can find me on Spotify and Apple, and there all of y'all can follow and subscribe to my podcast. Also, I ask that you please take the time out to leave me both a rating and a review. Follow me on IG at the_life_unexamined_podcast. And there I'll be sharing some video content of me discussing various topics that I talk about on my episodes during the week. And I'll also be sharing my words of the day to keep y'all actively thinking. And please visit my website, examineourlives.com, where you can find information about my podcast, information about myself. You can find information about guests that I have on my episodes. And if you want to reach out to me, you can hit me up on my website. Any suggestions, feedback, any questions that you may have, please don't hesitate to ask. And if it makes it easier for y'all, you can also leave me a voice message on my website. And who knows, I may end up playing a message on one of my episodes, with your consent, of course. All right, so let's get back to business. And I know it's been a minute since I've done my last episode. I had to take care of a lot of personal matters, had to get some things done, but I'm back. And I'm not one of those people that will just do an episode just to put content out there. That's not what I do. I'm not about that life whatsoever. As you already know, I push out content that has real thought and meaning behind it. So I'll do an episode based on if I'm inspired by someone, if I have a conversation with someone and that sparks me wanting to express that to an audience, or it could be thoughts, ideas, theories, my personal experiences, conversations that I have with myself. Yes, self-talk. It's healthy. And that's what you get when you listen to my podcast. And that could be planned or it could just be spontaneous, spur of the moment. You know, I do an episode pretty much whenever I feel like it. Now, with all of that being said, we are on episode 12, expectations. Now, let's look up the definition of expectation. Well, actually, I'll look up expect. To consider probable or certain, to consider reasonable, due, or necessary, to consider bound in duty or obligated, and last we have to anticipate or look forward to the coming or occurrence of. So one of the definitions that stood out to me was to consider reasonable. And when it comes to expectations, whether that be the expectations that we put on ourselves or that we put on others, many times our expectations are not reasonable. Now, having expectations for ourselves is healthy. And I believe that we all should challenge ourselves to do better, to become the best individuals that we can become, for sure. But I also believe, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, that we have to be realistic and reasonable in the goals and the expectations that we set. But one of the biggest issues that I see with people when it comes to expectations is when it comes to their relationships. And I'm talking about friendships, I'm talking about family, I'm talking about partners, all of the above. Many times we set expectations that are not even reasonable for the people that we interact with. And we hold them to standards that don't even make sense. They're not logical and they're asinine. But we do this because we want people to be this artificial illusion that we make up in our heads. Who they truly are is standing right in front of your face, but we choose not to see it. We choose ignorance. And I'm going to explain why that's the case. And to quote Maya Angelou, she said that when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And this is going to be very applicable to what I'm about to get into. I believe that many of us put expectations on others that aren't fair. So when I say not fair, I'm not talking about a victim mentality. I'm not talking about not being held accountable for your actions. I'm not talking about those that say, life is not fair. That's not what I'm talking about by any stretch of the imagination. Having standards and expectations are a beautiful thing. Don't get it twisted. But when we put those same standards and expectations on those who are not qualified, not only is that absurd, but it isn't fair. And I'm going to give a few examples of this. So let's say that you're a person whose core values are loyalty, and appreciation. And you have a childhood friend that you grew up with who from time to time, they've shown loyalty to you, not consistently though, and very rarely do they show appreciation to you. So as you get older, you grow tired of their behavior and you get frustrated. And you have these expectations that this childhood friend of yours is going to magically become someone that they aren't. So there comes a time when you even communicate with them and you express your concerns with their behavior. And you believe that progress is being made because there appears to be an understanding of your frustrations. And they say, hey, yo, I'm going to do better. I'm going to do better. Right? How many times have y'all heard that before? I'm pretty sure a lot of us have heard this before. So in the short term, there may be more effort on their part to show their appreciation for you and even show that they're loyal to you. But as time continues to pass, they go back to being who they naturally are. And this is a common theme that many of us struggle with. This is what leads to dysfunction because we think that if we have a conversation with someone and we communicate, which is healthy, by the way, and if someone says that they understand our perspective and, I'm going to do better, that's the key right there. They're going to do better. But do you understand that this reoccurring theme is never going to end? So you continue to put expectations on someone who is not worthy of those expectations. Throughout your relationship with your friend that you grew up with, there hasn't been a consistency when it comes to loyalty and appreciation. And for you, this is something that is core and is very important. But your friend is not going to be able to give that to you. So there's different ways to go about this. You accept it for what it is and understand that your friend is never going to be the person that you want them to be. And quite honestly, they don't have to be. Or you can make a decision to cut ties with that person if it affects you to that degree. That's up to you. Having expectations for your friends is logical and is valid. And when we're using the examples that I gave, desiring the consistency of loyalty and appreciation, that's wonderful. That's dope. But if you're putting those expectations on someone who's never going to show the consistency of loyalty and appreciation that you're looking for, then no, that's not fair to them. And it's not fair to you that you continue to be an idiot by asking these people to be something that they're not. It's never going to end well for you, and you're just going to end up being disappointed and hurt. And I don't know how everybody else thinks, but I know me personally, I've been through a lot of crap. I've been through a lot of heartache, a lot of pain, and I don't want to continue to have to go through that, especially when I have a choice in the matter, especially when I can control my life and make it what I want it to be. And I'm going to touch upon that a little bit more later. Now, on the flip side, if you do have a friend that has consistently over the years shown to you that they are loyal, that they appreciate you, then yes, it is fair to have an expectation that they will continue to do so until shown otherwise. But there's a track record. There's evidence there. And with that being said, you can never put anything past anyone. That goes without saying. But their actions have given you that leeway to say, yeah, these expectations, they're valid. That's a healthy form of expectations. You understand what I'm saying? That's reasonable. You should most certainly look forward to this being a regular occurrence throughout your relationship. This is pretty straightforward stuff. It really is. But now I want to pivot over to partnerships, because when it comes to the matters of the heart, this is where everything gets messy and convoluted, and logic and reasoning goes out the window. Not for all, but for many. Now, before I even talk about this, I want to say that what I have talked about in my previous episodes, and I say this often, having that strong foundation, knowing who you are, knowing if you're conditional or unconditional, knowing what your core values are. When you have that roadmap that I gave y'all, when you have that, you will have an understanding of healthy and realistic expectations and unhealthy and unrealistic expectations. Now that I got that out of the way, I'm about to get into my bag and discuss relationships and expectations on this level. And I know many of y'all are going to relate based on your own personal experiences, right? So let's say that I'm a very organized and disciplined person. And every day I have routines. I have my days planned out. I have a 2-year plan of what I want to do. I have a 4-year plan, a 5-year plan, and I stick to that every day. I'm disciplined in everything. I'm disciplined in how I eat, my diet. I'm disciplined when it comes to working out every week. Every aspect of my life is well thought out and planned. So let's say that I choose to be in a relationship with someone who isn't disciplined. They aren't organized. They don't even know what they want to do in their future. They're not consistent in their routines. They don't have any long-term plans, any long-term goals. And they live life from more of a creative space. They are more of a spur of the moment type of person. And as time goes on, their personality, their way of thinking, their actions, it starts to weigh on me. Their lack of discipline, their lack of consistency, it bothers me. So let's say that I have a conversation with them and I communicate with them. And as I said before, communication is healthy. So we converse and I pretty much tell them the issues that I have. And I say, you're not that disciplined when it comes to your everyday life. And I can see that it's starting to affect you mentally, and it's actually starting to affect me as well. And I have this plan of where I want to be in the next few years, but I'm not really sure what you want to do and what your plan is. And I also don't have a strong body of work that indicates that our short and our long-term goals are going to be aligned. And I tell them the importance of being disciplined, the importance of long-term planning, having goals. And when I say all of this to them, they respond in a positive way. And there seems to be understanding, right? And I'm thinking that, okay, this is progress because they're not responding to me in a negative way. They're not coming back to me and saying, well, nah, I don't want to do that. It's more along the lines of, all right, yeah, I need to do better. I'm going to do better. So now after that conversation, I'm excited because, yeah, I'm thinking about all the possibilities and I have all these ideas and future scenarios in my head about what this person is going to become. It's imaginary, but this is what I'm thinking in my head, right? And I'm loving the idea of this person that I believe is going to come into fruition. But as months go on, I see no changes. I see the same laziness. I see the same lack of discipline. I see the same lack of consistency in their routines and what they do every day. I see the same lack of planning. There's no growth. And I'm saying to myself, yo, I just spoke to her about this. What is she doing? What does she not understand? So from there, she and I are communicating with one another, and I'm bringing up the same issues that I brought up in the beginning. But at the end of this conversation, that excitement starts to dwindle. And I continue to have the same conversations over a period of time, and the excitement is gone. That excitement that you had of that imaginary person doesn't exist anymore. That utopia that you had in your head is fictitious. Reality hits you. And you know what happens when reality hits you? Frustration kicks in, disappointment kicks in, anger kicks in, which eventually leads to resentment. And those conversations that you had for a few months turns into a year. Then it turns into another year. Then it turns into a few more years and more years. And ladies and gentlemen, what we have here is an imbalanced relationship. So what I need to do now is take a step back and examine my life and reflect. And I need to understand what's really going on. Because the worst thing that I can do is put expectations on a person, and that's not who they are. That's not who they've shown themselves to be. So for me to have expectations that a person who is not organized, a person who is not consistent, a person that has lazy qualities and doesn't plan long-term will magically turn into this person who is disciplined, who does have consistency, who does have consistent routines, who isn't lazy, who does plan long-term, who does have goals, is lunacy. In what world does that make sense? No, seriously, like I'm asking y'all, like, in what world does that even make sense? It doesn't. Because of the way that I live my life, I'm putting those same expectations on a human being that lives nothing like that. That is lunacy. It's illogical. It's unreasonable. It's irrational. It's foolish. It's fallacious. And it's absurd. And I used all of those words to really emphasize how ridiculous this is. Because so many of us do this on a regular day basis. We put expectations on people that don't even deserve it. They don't deserve it. And then we just continue to get frustrated and bothered because we put unfair expectations on them. Yo, your relationship is never going to change because it's two people who are different. And I spoke about this on a compatibility episode as well. And check that episode out if you haven't already. Nonetheless, we're trying to make someone in the image of ourselves or the image of whatever we want them to be. But it sure isn't who they are. This is what I'm talking about when I say that it's not fair. But when it comes to matters of the heart, this is where it can turn messy and chaotic. Because we want a relationship to work so badly that we will just continue to beat a dead horse. You're being a dead horse. The expectations that we put on people, we really need to understand who we are and the people that we surround ourselves with. And this is why I always talk about the importance of surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals. Because when you surround yourself with those that think along the lines that you do, doesn't mean that you're the same person because we're all unique. But if you surround yourself with those who are like-minded, then now you can put those expectations appropriately to those where it fits. And stop trying to force your views, your way of thinking, your way of life on others who don't believe the same as you. They don't live their life like that. So why do we continuously try to force ourselves on other people, man? And then get upset when they don't do what we want them to do? It's not someone else's job to figure out what your expectations are. It's your job to know what your expectations are and to surround yourself with those who can fulfill them. Because if you continue to surround yourself with people that are going to disappoint you because they don't fit the mold of what you consider a friend to be or what you consider a partner to be. And when it comes to family, well, family is just family. And fortunately or unfortunately, we don't control that. We don't control the family that we were raised in. We have no control over that. You know, we grow up with who we grew up with. You know what I mean? And our family is our family. What you choose to do with your relationships with your family, that's a whole different conversation, right? But when it comes to our friends and partners and co-workers and associates, we control that. But stop mixing feelings and emotions and matters of the heart with expectations. Because as you can see, those expectations that you deem to be reasonable due to your feelings and emotions, in actuality, are unreasonable expectations. And I just urge many of y'all, stop looking at social media, TV, your friends, what you see as barometers of what your relationship should be, because we are all individuals. And yes, we can learn from others, and that's wisdom. And we definitely can learn from people's successes and failures. I think that makes perfect sense, and that's dope. And again, there's nothing wrong with having expectations in any of our relationships because that's normal, that's healthy. But having unrealistic expectations causes stress, and it can in turn ruin your relationships. And no relationship is perfect, but just remember to do that inner work on yourself before you even go out and seek relationships. Seriously, because then your expectations can be put forth to the correct population. And from my experience, I've also seen expectations that we may have since childhood that ends up plaguing us as we become adults. From our childhood, there may have been expectations that we had for our parents and those who were blessed to have both parents in their lives. If there were certain things that you didn't receive from your parents in terms of affection, support, direction, many of us will project that onto others and expect our friends or our partners to provide what was missing during our childhood. And when our partners don't deliver that, when our friends don't deliver that, we become disenchanted. And sometimes when people are not receiving what they want and their expectations are not being met, they'll try even harder to get the approval of their partners and their friends. Just because you try harder doesn't mean that that person is going to receive it in the way that you want it to be received. And this is the importance of knowing who you are and knowing who those are around you. So I know that money issues and lack of communication are many times listed as the top relationship destroyers, and rightfully so. But I'm adding unrealistic expectations to that list as well. Expecting something out of a relationship that the other is either ignorant of, unwilling to provide, or simply unable to provide causes a lot of emotional damage. It does. And it's not healthy at all. And you know what happens as time progresses? People start to harbor those negative feelings. And in turn, that leads to resentment and bitterness. And one of the things that I always say this, in my life personally, I never want to resent anyone. I never want to be bitter towards anyone. And I live by that. But in order to do that, you have to understand what your boundaries are. And you have to set realistic expectations. We have to stop doing a disservice to ourselves. We have to stop making life hard for ourselves. We have to get out of the habit of making our life more difficult than what it has to be. If you want to continue to have people in your life that don't compliment you, that don't build with you, those that hold you down, that keep you down, those that don't have the same values, if you want to continue to harbor resentment towards other people, if you want to continue to be bitter towards people, that's your choice. So if you want to wallow in that, if you want to play victim, if you want to live a life filled with animosity and sadness, then go right ahead. But don't complain about it, though. Don't complain about that because you control that. Regardless if you're in a relationship with someone and they're doing something to you that you don't like, understand that you play a factor in that as well because you chose to be with that person. And I have to pause real quick because when I'm saying all of this, it makes me think of a hip hop song that corresponds to this subject matter. And I'm a hip hop head. So it makes me think about this hip hop song by Joe Budden. And he was talking about how both parties in this toxic relationship choose to continue to want to be with one another. So I'm going to quote that verse. Shorty keep beefing about the same ish, almost like yelling is her second language. Why do I entertain it? Listen, we've been arguing about everything for ages. Do it ever change ish? We end up egging each other on for the whole week. It's a lot of men in this world, baby. You chose me, like I chose you. We've been rocking for years. You signed up. You're not a victim. You're a volunteer. So really think about that. You're not a victim. You play the role of a victim. You're volunteering your services to another party. You're willingly indulging in nonsensical behavior. And you deserve everything that comes with that. Understand that. If you don't make changes, you deserve everything that comes with that. Take 100% accountability for your life and your actions or lack thereof. And for those of y'all out there that want to do something about it, this is why you're listening. Because my podcast is about solutions. It's about solutions. It's about putting in real work and changing your life for the better and making your life worth living. Y'all know that. Y'all know that. So the next time you having a conversation with somebody, could be your family, could be your partner, could be your friend, and you get frustrated because you have certain expectations and they're not meeting them, I want you to pause and really reflect and say, is this expectation or expectations realistic, reasonable, fair? Do they deserve that? Do I deserve that? And if they have given you evidence that tells you that what you expect from them is not warranted, I want you to look at that person and I want you to tell them thank you. And you don't have to say this out loud. You can say it to yourself. But I want you to say thank you. Say thank you. Thank you for showing me who you are. Thank you for allowing me to see that my expectations aren't reasonable for you. Thank you for giving me the understanding that I'm wasting my time and my energy that's not worth living for. The synergy is not there. Thank you. The time is now to make change. So if that inner circle needs to be cleaned up, then do what's necessary to make that circle immaculate. Don't just keep rearranging the same inner circle, because that doesn't change anything. They're just the same people, and it's the same trash. If you see trash on the floor and you rearrange that trash, does that change it from being trash? No, of course not. It's still trash. So clean it up and remove it. Stop surrounding yourself with people who are going to disappoint you because the expectations that you put on them are not deserving. And I don't know about y'all, but setting reasonable expectations for those who deserve it, well, that's just another pathway to a life that's worth living. I'm your host, J-Smoove, and thank you for listening to The Life Unexamined is Not Worth Living. And I'm out of here. Peace.